We're talking about Matthew chapter 9, these last 4 verses of the chapter that are very near and dear to us. And we are talking about the second thing that I see in these 4 verses, which has changed and will change the world. And it is about the motivation, the heart behind the thrusting forth of laborers. And it says this. It says that when Jesus saw the crowds, so he's traveling throughout the cities and villages, he's preaching the gospel of the kingdom, demonstrating it by healing every disease and every affliction. And then it says when he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. What strikes me about this verse is that Jesus was not demonstrating the kingdom out of show. He was not performing and appealing to men's intellect, but he was actually, the demonstration of the kingdom was coming out of a groan in his heart that was filled with compassion. That Greek word for compassion in Matthew chapter 9, it literally means Jesus, like his stomach or his guts were twisted. Another translation is like literally like a stomach pain. And when Jesus looks at the crowds, and I believe when he's looking at the crowds, he's not just looking at the few thousand that are around him following him, but he's looking at what the masses represent. The masses represent the nations. The masses represent mankind. The masses represent the state of the human existence. And as he looks out on the state of the human existence, his heart literally breaks. And his guts twist and he groans. Because he's looking at the image bearers. The ones that were created in his image. The ones that were created for fellowship with him. And as he looks out, he sees this. They're harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. In other words, the ones that were created for fellowship with him were being tormented by demons. They were being afflicted by the consequences of the fall. And he groans, his heart breaks. He goes, this is not what I made them for. This is not the beauty that I made the human frame for. And so he groans. And out of that groan in the heart of Jesus, of compassion, he turns to his disciples and he says, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly that the Lord of the harvest would thrust forth laborers into his harvest field. See, laborers that carry the gospel to the nations are an expression of the compassion of Jesus. And they are fueled, they are motivated by the compassion of Jesus. See, laborers, when they get into that place of prayer together, they encounter Jesus. And one of the things that happens in the corporate prayer meeting is what Jesus sent them to. He said, the harvest problem has a laborer problem. The laborer problem is a prayer problem. Go to the place of prayer together, and what's going to happen is you're going to start to touch my heart. And when you touch my infinite capacity for compassion, it is going to break your heart. And when your heart breaks for peoples and places and neighborhoods and nations that you never felt anything before, it will violently lay hold of you and it will cast you out into those very same peoples and places and neighborhoods and nations. And Paul picks this up later on and he says, it's the love of Christ that compels me. I don't preach the gospel out of selfish gain or try to make money. I've been touched with the torrent of compassion that is in the heart of Jesus for the nations of the earth. And that same compassion has thrust me to be the answer. Hey, speaking of people and places you never heard of, we have just wrapped up a project we've been working on over a year and a half called 50 Hours Film. It's a story of what God's doing in the Middle East. See, most of you have only heard the bad news, but God is writing a magnificent story, and we want to share it with the world. So go to 50-hours.com to find out more information.